Can you tell us where you're from and what early childhood was like for you?
I can, yeah, sure. I'm 54 years old. I'll be 54 in July. And I was born and raised right here in Palm Beach County. Right here. I drank here. I did a lot of drugs here. And I got sober here. Every day I move among the wreckage of my past. It's right outside these doors from all the way down to Deerfield, man. You know, but
That's
you know
quite
what?
a stretch.
It is, but thanks to the program that I work of Alcoholics Anonymous and having a relationship with a God of my understanding today, I can stand to hear and to bear the worst that can be said of me of those days, because there's some pretty bad things that can be said of me in those areas, and I still live in those areas. You know, I still move among the wreckage of my past. My childhood, you know. I've never considered myself a fearful man all my life. Right? I wore that like a badge of honor for a lot of years. Until at 46 years old, like I said, I'm 53 now. At 46 years old, I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, an absolutely broken shell of a human being. And for the first time in my life, I got honest about myself with myself. I got honest about myself with God. That wasn't too tough. He already knew, right? But I got honest about myself with another man, my sponsor. And today I can look back and I can see that fear has absolutely been the governor of my life for about as long as I can remember. And I'll tell you the moment I go back to, I was 9 years old. The year was 1980. I was in my bedroom reading a book called James and the Giant Peach. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
A man came into my home. My mom had an ad in the newspaper selling a couch. That's how we sold things back then. I'm older than the internet. So this guy answers that ad. And when my mother took him out into the garage to show him the couch, I followed along behind him. That man wrapped a telephone cord around my mom and strangled her and raped her in front of me. I didn't know what was happening. And once I figured it out, I remember hollering at the guy, and he ran at me. Oh, I thought he was running at me, but he wasn't. He was running at the garage door opener that was on the wall next to me. He hit that garage door opener and he got away. My mom survived that attack, barely. She'd never be the same afterwards. But that man went on and killed 9 women. And he died by lethal injection at Rayford Prison in Florida in 2018, the year I got sober. I thought he had died years ago by electric chair, but I found out recently because my wife was watching one of those. She watches all those murder shows like women do. I don't know what that is. And the dude was on there. And I'd never seen him since that day that I was a kid. But that moment, they took me to the police station that night. I didn't really have a father figure in my life at the time. So they took me to the police station and they showed me mugshots of bad guys, and that was it. 9 years old, that was it. They sent me home with my sister, who's a year older than me, and my aunt. And for the next 5 or 6 months, I was just paralyzed with fear. In my mind, that guy was outside my bedroom window. He was outside my door. He was around every corner. I wouldn't go to the bathroom. I had a bottle that I put in the corner, and that paralyzing fear. I remember the moment that I made the decision that if I just ever saw that man again, I'd kill him. That was my solution at 9 years old. Was that the only way I made that decision, and I felt like I wrestled some type of control back. And I've been looking for that control for the rest of my life, really, you know. But I felt it. I felt like I had gained some control. I'm just going to kill this guy. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife, 9 years old. And I believe that moment in my life set me on a course of making myself into a certain type of a man who would never be a victim to anyone or anything again, right? But I also believe that it got me aware of the presence of God. It sounds crazy, but in my mind, I understood that this wasn't a drug deal gone bad. This wasn't a robbery gone bad. This was a man who wanted nothing more than to do evil things to my mother. My perception of the world at 9 years old was evil exists. It will come into your home and get you. The boogeyman was real, you know, and that was what set me on this course in my life. I ran it. God saw fit to put 2 men in my life about 6 months after that would become surrogate fathers to me. I was walking home from school through a warehouse district down in Boca Raton, actually. And these 2 men were training in a martial art, kickboxing and Muay Thai. And they had a garage. We're going back to 1980, 1981. and they had a warehouse set up with, heavy bags and a ring and mats and stuff. And I just stood there mesmerized. I'm like, this is what I need. And those men took me under their wing. And that's where I could be found for the next 8-9 years, was with those men training after school. Didn't really have friends in grade school, or I had those two retired Army Rangers. And they instilled in me, all the principles and values that Alcoholics Anonymous holds. So their integrity, which is to do the right thing no matter the personal cost. People always say it's to do the right thing no matter who's looking. Yeah, but that's a little shallow. It's to do the right thing no matter the personal cost. Often comes at a high personal cost.
Mm-hmm.
Do it anyways, right? That's integrity. They instilled that. They instilled discipline, courage, brotherly love, all this stuff, I was raised right. Was raised well. None of that would matter when my disease got a hold of me. It wouldn't matter the man I was meant to be, right? By the time I was 14 years old, I was traveling the country competing. And at 18, I won a national championship. Martial arts
Muay Thai?
In American kickboxing.
Okay.
Yeah. And
This show is sponsored by Open Recovery Addiction Help. Whether you're newly sober, in long-term sobriety, or even maybe looking to make a change in your life, Open Recovery offers 24/7 support right from your phone. It's anonymous and packed with tools to help you stay connected, stay accountable, and build the life you deserve. Download the Open Recovery Addiction Help app today and take the next step in your recovery journey.
I don't say that to come off any certain way. I say that because it takes a lot of discipline to be a national champion
Yes.
at anything. And that was me. I was squared away. Whether it was my academic endeavors, my athletic endeavors, I achieved. I couldn't achieve my way out of being an alcoholic and a drug addict. I couldn't discipline my way out of it. I couldn't will my way out of it. I couldn't learn my lesson out of it. I am what I am. I'm exactly how God made me. Right? And I probably took my first drink around 14, and I didn't drink alcoholically from day one. You'll hear people say this all the time. You go to meetings, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I picked up and I started drinking
alcoholically from day one. Okay, but that just wasn't my experience. But I loved it. I loved it because it got me outside of myself, right? I just told you I didn't have a lot of friends. I was always looking for your twist, how you wanted to hurt me. My perception of the world was everybody's out to get me, right? That's all I knew from the time I was 9 years old. And so you put a couple of drinks in me and now I could talk. It's a wonderful social lubricant for people. And right at that age, you put a couple of drinks in me, now I could talk. I could make friends. I could talk to girls, right? Big deal there, But you put a couple more drinks in me and my motor skills left me. I got sloppy and I could no longer defend myself. And that fear kept alcohol at bay for a few years, right? I was 18 years old. I was at the Diamond Nationals in Minneapolis. It's a big martial arts tournament. Yeah. And after the fights that night, I was in the room with some of the guys passing around a bottle of whiskey in one of the hotel rooms. Again, I took a couple shots of it, non-alcoholically. I was going to bow out. I felt that feeling coming on. I was going to bow out and go back to my room. And this guy lays a line of Peruvian white marching powder out on the table, this long, cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he says, here, man, do this. This will tune you up. You'll be able to drink all night.
Sober you right out.
I did, and it did, and I did. I drank from that moment forward. My disease was full tilt and boogie, man. That was it. And the next, I'd say 10 to 12 years, whiskey and cocaine went together like peas and carrots. I spent, my 20s running security nightclubs, working in the nightclubs, soon escorting girls to bachelor parties, just, running with a crew, and it wasn't, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun in my 20s, and it's important. I was the man, everything all the time, man, working at the places down in Fort Lauderdale and all the, it was a lot of fun, rubbing elbows with celebrities and stuff. And it's important to note that because I've heard thousands of people's testimony. I've yet to hear one person say, yeah, I started drinking when I was 16 and I hated it from day one. You don't hear that.
Never will.
But I always talk about this. The way this disease starts, it starts off, it's fun. That's why we all do it. And it's important to recognize that. We wouldn't have done it. But eventually the disease progresses to the point that it just tells everyone to go away. Just go away, man. I've been telling people for so long, leave me alone, leave me alone. I don't want to hear it, go away. You know what happens? They go away. And then eventually, given enough time, the disease tells me to go away. Just get it over with, man. You're no good. And that's exactly where mine took me. Right? But in my 20s, it was a lot of fun. I had a son that was born, product of a marriage that went down in flames when I was about 23 years old.
You got married at 23?
Yeah, I got married young.
Okay, and then had a child, a son.
Yeah, that marriage lasted a year. It was a product of, it was because of my drink, and I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now clearly. And but that's how I lived my 20s, man. I lived an absolutely godless existence. I did not care who I hurt. I did it with glee.
You mentioned when you were, I think, 14 to whenever you did the coke, you would drink, you would have a few drinks, but you wouldn't get blacked out because of that fear. Mm-hmm. And it prevented you from getting blacked out, and you were able to keep alcohol at bay.
Yeah.
Two questions. Number one, when did you realize that it was really the fear that was keeping you away from alcohol? And then did you justify, not knowing that at that time, did you justify and say, well, I'm not really an alcoholic because I only have a couple of drinks and I don't get blacked out?
Yeah, so I didn't think about that fear. I didn't realize that until I got sober.
Yeah.
Until I learned about my disease, and I learned that I've been driven by fear all my life. I never realized that at the time. I thought I was disciplined. I've had enough. And look, we talk about who knows if I was, it doesn't matter to me one bit. I don't care whether I was born an alcoholic or whether I drank my way into it. But at some point I crossed that line where I could no longer control it. Now, I don't know when that was, but I guarantee I was drunk when I did it. Right. And at some point I look back at that stuff, and I work with a lot of guys now and stuff, and they'll start asking me these questions like, and when did you know? And were you born an alcoholic? Were you? And I stop them right there, and I just tell them, listen, man, your mind is looking for a loophole right now. Your mind is probing to see where it can insert that lie to make you drink on that lie. Because that's what we do. We drink on a lie. We don't drink on the truth.
Oh, I will look for those little cracks. I'll get 100 different opinions until the opinion that I want to hear fits exactly what my disease wants.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we do with those. So I take it, I'm very cautious today. I work in the field of recovery, and I live and breathe this big book, and this is my purpose in life now, is helping people, overcome what I've overcome. And I get emotional when I talk about it, because the greatest gift of my recovery is to be able to sit here with you right now and tell you that story from when I was a kid, and to be able to look back at my life and to say unequivocally, without a doubt, that my life has always had and does now have a great purpose. There's no greater gift in the world than that. I think that there's not a greater exercise for the human condition than to be able to reach down and help your fellow man. And we're gifted. God's gifted us. And I see it as such. I would have told you when I came here, when I got sober, that I believed in God. I always had a belief in God. I was raised Catholic. I believed in God. Big deal, man. My kid believed in Bigfoot. That was my akin to my belief in God. But now I can look back, and I would have told you I was agnostic, meaning I was without knowledge, because I was without knowledge of how God had ever worked in my life. But I can look back now, and I can see every step of the way. And so I got off what we were talking about there a little bit, but yeah, I try not to look for the loopholes and question stuff too much. I just kind of like, what's next for me to do?
Yeah. So you're 23, you're married, you have a son. What does life look like after that?
Well, and here's the other lie that I can see, right? So when I came into rehab, I would have told you what a great father I was. But don't you know I'm a good father? I raised my son after my wife passed. My second wife passed away, and don't you know I'm a great father? And my, and good fathers don't go to jail for getting into bar fights at 2:30 in the morning, right? Good fathers don't do that. Good fathers don't drive drunk with their kids in the car. Good fathers don't do that. I did, right? So at the time when I was in my 20s, I thought, I was working for an air conditioning company, I had a good job. And my divorce, there was an infidelity, and not on my part. And she just fell out of love with me. Broke my heart. It devastated me. And I drank at that lady. I drank at my son's mother for years because I just couldn't never see my part. My part was, well, yeah, I'm not cheating on her. I'm not going out I'm not staying out overnight and stuff. I'm coming. But what I was doing was I was getting done at work at 4:30 and I was staying at the shop with the guys drinking beer until 10:30 while she's home with my son. And then I'm coming home at 10:30 going, what? I'm a good provider. All that bullshit lies that we tell, right? Well, but I'm a good provider. But I abandoned her in that marriage. I did not lift a single finger to participate in that family because I was at the shop drinking with the guys until 11 o'clock at night and justifying it by saying, well, we're working on plans for tomorrow and this and that. So I can look back now and I can see that, hey, that doesn't mean that like it had to go down the way it went down, but that's not that's not about me. That was about her. So it didn't, I had a resentment against that, but that resentment, I just drank at her for so many years until, and in doing so, that resentment got greater and greater. My part in it got less and less. The harm that it caused got more and more until 20 years later, I'm walking into an AA meeting going, don't you know she just did this to me and that to me? And I had nothing, and I was a great husband and great father. And it was all bullshit, man. That was the way I was seeing things. That was my warped way of thinking, So that's how that went down in my 20s. And that's when my drinking really kicked off.
So you guys you split up, get a divorce right after the infidelity.
Yeah.
And what happens? How does it kick off?
Well, she wound up marrying a wonderful, wonderful man that became a father to my son in my absence. That I'm just, I owe that man a debt of gratitude that I could never repay. She's a wonderful mother. Phenomenal. I met another woman. I was 32, I guess, when I met her.
You were sober at this point, right?
No, I was still drinking. I was drinking bad, drugging bad. And then this woman, God put a woman in my life that fundamentally changed me forever. And I love telling this story. I was working at a nightclub down on Atlantic Avenue in Delray Beach, and it's a nice area, right? You've been there. Mm-hmm. And this couple comes walking up, and he's wearing a wife beater. And kids, you don't wear a wife beater in a place like this, right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't let him in, and I stopped him. I said, hey, man, I can't let you in wearing that shirt. And he says, well, he starts hemming and hawing about it. And I said, wait a minute, here's the keys to my truck. It's parked out back. There's a button-down shirt in it. Just walk around there and go. It's right outside his back door. There's an alleyway that cut through there. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah, man. He goes, come on, baby. I said, no, she's going to wait here. And her and I were married 6 months later. I love telling that story.
I'm like, wow, you're such a good guy.
No, I wasn't. But there was something about, we say in the rooms, they have something I want. And there was something about this woman I wanted, and it had nothing to do with her being a female. It had to do with a God light that shined through her. This woman, she was closer to God than anybody I've ever known in my life, her relationship. And the way that had come to pass, she had been born with a very rare disease. There were only 80 known cases in the world when she was diagnosed at 10 years old. It's called lymphangiomatosis, and it's a lymphatic disorder. They consider it a pediatric disease because it presents in the first decade of life.
Yep.
No patient had ever survived the second decade of life. They'd be dead by 12 or 13. She was 25 when I met her. You can imagine the type of human being that produces.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't, what are we going to do on my birthday? It's, am I going to be healthy? Am I going to be here on my birthday?
Yeah.
She didn't talk a lot, but when she did, the room fell silent. You just knew that you were in the presence of someone very rare. And it was a high honor to be loved by a woman that rare. We got married about a month before we were to get married. Her lungs, she started having a problem. Her disease was in remission when I met her. It's such a complicated disease because there's so little known about it, and it affects all areas of the body. But right before we were to get married, she started having a real difficult time breathing. I took her down to Cleveland Clinic in Miami, and there it was determined that she had to undergo a bilateral lung transplant to survive. She had to have both lungs replaced.
Holy
That's the cloud under which we got married. And we got married and we reached out to every institution in the country practically, and nobody would do the transplant because it was considered experimental transplant. Nobody had done it on someone, right, and they're responsible for how they use the organs donated. Yep. The last place we reached out to was Duke Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. And they called us on Christmas Eve of 2002, of 2002, and they said, we're willing to do this transplant, but it's always a but. You've got to relocate here. At this point in my life, I am drinking and drugging against my will. My life is, my disease is dictating where and when I choose to participate in life. I can't go to Christmas at my mom's house because I can't drink the way I want to there. I can't go on vacation somewhere because I don't have someone to sell me cocaine there. It was literally dictating where and when I participated in life. And now I've got to move to North Carolina. I've got to leave my son here with his mother, and I've got to leave. And I've never lived outside of Palm Beach County. I was terrified.
Yeah.
You know? But that night, the night before we were to leave, I had a kind of a white light spiritual moment where I prayed for the first time in a long time, and I felt the presence of God. And I remember running home and saying, honey, I can do this. And I put down alcohol and drugs for 7 years. That night, we moved to North Carolina the next day. And in those 7 years, I didn't want anything to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought my egotistical alcoholic mind said, if I still have to work this program, I still have to do this stuff, then I'm still letting alcohol control me, and I'm tougher than that. I'm better than that. And I did. I had a good sobriety. It wasn't a white knuckle sobriety. You hear people say that. Yep. I call that caffeine and hate. Dude, you can stay sober on caffeine and hate. I see people do it. You can sit over at Oasis and watch it on the patio for a little while, man. You'll see guys 10, 12, 13 years sober that haven't fixed anything. Still can't have a healthy relationship, still can't hold a job, right? That's not what this was. And I believe because in that time, I found a God of my understanding. And I believe I found that because for the first time in my life, I cared about someone more than I cared about myself. For me, the God of my understanding, that's where I find God today. I see God's work everywhere, but I find God in me. It says it in the book, in the last analysis, it is only there that he can be found, is deep down within us. And I find God in me and in you and in every human being that I come in contact with. And from this day till my last, the God of my understanding lives in that translation and how I treat that person. So I had God and I had a purpose, taking care of the one most loved, right? What I didn't have was a defense against the first drink. I didn't know my truth. And my truth is I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. I can never put a mind or mood altering substance in my body again, or I will have to be stopped. That's it. The party's over, Rover. I can't handle drugs and alcohol. They handle me. And here's the kicker. Ready? It's never going to be different. Ever. I pick up a drink 20 years.
Hey guys, a quick heads up. From this point on in the interview, the audio switches from the microphone to the camera due to a technical issue. It's still totally listenable, just a bit lower quality. Nothing's wrong with your speaker. Thanks for sticking with us.
I'll be catapulted right back.
Not just, are you sure? Just one?
No,
it won't be different?
One. It won't be different.
Dude,
that's the lie.
Myself that for 10 years straight.
Yeah, that's the
I would
lie.
get a couple months away from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
I could do one more.
Yeah.
I could do one oxy.
Yeah.
Just one.
That's it.
And then tomorrow we're going to continue with our sobriety time. We're going to forget about it.
That's the lie.
Like it never happened. And we're just going to move on.
Yeah, that's the lie. That
I've never done that successfully once.
No. And that's what the allergy is not going away. You're going to have that till the day you die. It's just like a peanut allergy. If I get sick from eating peanuts because I have a peanut allergy, I'm going to recover from the sickness of the peanut allergy if I stop eating peanuts. If I pick up peanuts again 20 years from now, I'm going to get sick all over again. And I'm going to have to recover from the sickness all over again. That's alcoholism and drug addiction right there, right? So in this time in North Carolina, man, it was the most beautiful time of my life. I bought a house on 7 acres out in the country.
Oh, wow.
My son got to come up every other month and stay with us on this property. I started an outreach to inner city boys on the mat through a MMA program. I had the rare honor of being a Tier 3 Modern Army Combatives instructor at Fort Bragg as a civilian. Wow. And I was my son's absolute hero, man. I'd hear him playing Call of Duty, with his mic, and he'd be like, yeah, my dad teaches the Army. I was his hero. And she had her transplant, and she never came off oxygen, but they did consider it as a success. And it was just the most beautiful, peaceful time. I had a beautiful family, and I had a beautiful home. And then in the spring of 2009, her lungs began to fail again. And she wasn't a candidate for another transplant. She was given 6 months left to live. And I just took those 6 months off work and I just lived with her. You know, we'd sleep in the mornings and watch movies throughout the day. And she'd take me out in the kitchen and teach me how to make my favorite recipes. She was an amazing cook. And we talked about everything under the sun. And I remember asking her one time, I said, how are you not bitter, having been afflicted with such a ravaging disease? How are you not bitter? And I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, the worst way that a human being could live is with bitterness in their heart. And she forgave. That's our fourth step. Jana worked those steps without ever being an alcoholic or ever knowing the first thing about them, because they're not unique to Alcoholics Anonymous. You can take any religion, aside from step one, you take any religion known to mankind, pretty much, you boil it down, you get those 12 steps come out of the bottom. Be a good human being. Help one another. Love one another. Hold each other up. I had her in-home hospice because she wanted to die at home. She did not want to die in a hospital room. And she was lucid right up until the end. And I remember asking her sometime in those last 24 to 48 hours, I remember asking her if she was afraid. And she said, no, I'm not afraid of dying. And I don't believe she was. I don't believe most people are when it's been a life well lived. And hers indeed was. She helped a lot of people. She said that she was afraid that after she passed away, I was going to move back here to South Florida to be with my son, and which was the plan. That was the plan. And that I would start drinking again. And I told her, I said, that's impossible. There's no way. It's been 6 years at this point. I don't have a craving, obsession. I'm relieved. And I was okay with what was about to happen because I was spiritually fit. I assured her of that, you know. Jana died in my arms on January 6th, 2010, 11:15 in the morning.
I'm so sorry for your loss, man.
I didn't come unglued. I didn't drink because my wife died. I didn't curse God because my wife died. I had been blessed with a once in a lifetime type of love to be able to honor that commitment, to be able to walk the one most loved as far in this life as I could. And that's a blessing that most men don't ever get. And I saw it as such. But I believe that in the days following, I lost my reliance on God. I stopped talking to God and I started talking to her. About 6 months after she passed, I moved back here to South Florida. And about 6 months after that, so a year now has passed, I went out to dinner with some friends. If you told me, Eric, tonight you're picking up a drink, I would have told you you're out of your mind. I'm fine. My wife's fine. I've got a good job. I bought a house down here. I'm good. The book tells us it's the pebble that trips us, not the boulder. It says for some insanely trivial reason, we pick up a drink again. On that why, right? The boulder would have been Jana passing. Nobody would have convicted me if I'd have gone out and gotten hammered that night. They'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That's not what happened. I was out to dinner with some friends, and this girl says to me, she said, well, you're not an alcoholic. Look what you did. You took care of her. The mission's over. You can live a little now. One glass of wine's not going to kill you. Glass of wine. I don't even like wine, bro. I couldn't tell you the first thing about wine. My wine up to this point I'd ever drank was out of a box, right? When I was an alcoholic. But I remember the mental blank spot. I remember like it was yesterday. I remember she said that and my mind went, yeah.
She's right.
I've been around some. I've seen some things, life and death. You know, I'm older now. Yeah, one glass of wine is not going to kill me.
It was just a phase.
I picked up that glass of wine. I went out for 9 years. Until I was homeless, living in a homeless park. I didn't pick up where I left off. I picked up as if I had never, ever quit. And I remember the day that I was done. I woke up in that homeless park down in off Lake Avenue down there, John Prince. And it had been raining that night, so I crawled between the men and the women's restroom, laying there in muddy footprints and piss and God knows what else. And I walked into that bathroom, and I looked at myself in that bathroom mirror, you know, those plexiglass park bathroom mirrors that are, I'll never forget. Yes, and I'll never forget this because it was broken and it was shaped oddly like the state of Florida. Just like the state of Florida, which is what I blamed all my problems on. I never should have moved here, right? I never should have moved here. And I looked at myself in that mirror, and for 9 years I've been walking around out there saying, Eric, this isn't you. This isn't you. You should be disgusted with you. And I looked at myself in that mirror that morning and said, this is you. This is you, and I fucking hate you. As much as I've ever loved anyone or anything in my life, I hate you that much. Now go away. You see, homelessness wasn't a bottom. Homelessness is a situational bottom, man. I can hustle. I can climb out of that bottom. I can work hard. My bottom was every day that my head hit those bushes or the park bench or whatever I was sleeping on that time, or I came to, and I laid there and I wondered how many times did my son drive under that overpass today? Not recognize that bum counting change. How many times did he drive under that overpass and not recognize that bum as the man who comforted him and helped raise him? I had become invisible to everyone. Nobody cares about the bum. And there I am that morning looking in that plexiglass mirror, and I said, this is it. I hate you. And I made a decision because I had a plan. I was going to drink myself to sleep on the railroad tracks. That was what I was going to do. I was going to pass out on the railroad tracks. I walked 2 miles to JFK Hospital, and I walked into that emergency room with a genuine terror that I was going to kill myself. Me, the tough guy, the guy who said all my life, that's a coward's way out. I'll never do that. And there I was at the precipice. And I said, you guys can't let me leave here. I'm going to kill myself. And that's right, that moment is when my journey in sobriety began. It was right then. I couldn't do it. That was it. I couldn't do it. My only way out was to kill myself. And I felt like that for a long time in early recovery. I'd go into those meetings and I couldn't hear anything because I was just waiting for the next shoe to drop, and I fucked up my life. I've done this and done that. And you know, now when I work with guys in recovery, I always have to remember that, man. You know, I work in treatment. This guy probably wants to kill himself. We're screaming at him about the dishes in the sink, you know. little love and tolerance goes a long way.
So you go to the hospital. Do you go right into detox?
They sent me to the psych ward, so I guess that's detox. But
Those are the special cases.
Yeah, and I was drinking hand sanitizer off the wall as soon as I got there.
Yeah.
I mean, that you couldn't get it. That's how fucking hand sanitizer, and I'm drinking it like it's, you know, it tasted like tequila. Mix it with water, a Jello shot.
Yeah. How long were you institutionalized? Like you went from the psych ward?
So I was in the psych ward a few times.
Yeah.
They let me out and I'd go right back to it.
Yeah.
And then I went back. I actually liked going to the psych ward at this point because they had the Uncrustables that they kept in the fridge, and I could stuff them in my pocket and go back into the room. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. These people in here are crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just an alcoholic, you know. But I was crazy, man. But so that happened a couple of times, and then they offered me a scholarship to a rehab up in North Palm Beach, and I took it. I was just done, man. And I took it, and look, rehab's great. I work in rehab. It's great. It was necessary for me because I had to be stopped. But all it was a moment in time, man, for me to figure out what am I doing with my life? How am I going to live? I can't live in rehab. I would have I was so beaten down when I come into rehab at 46 years old. I'm on a van with these kids in their mid-20s, and they're hip-hopping or whatever they do, you know, on the van, listening to music and stuff. And I literally want to jump out of that van and run into traffic because I'm just at a different place. And it was like that for a long time. I don't have the rest of my life ahead of me. I'm 46. My wife's dead. That was the big thing when I woke up in rehab was, oh my God, Jana's dead. Been 9 years, and I'm just realizing it. It felt like
you're just grieving it.
I'm just fucking, yeah. And But I knew that something had to change. But if you'd have told me at that moment, hey, you can live in rehab here and just go to groups and the rest of you, I would have taken it. That's how little trust I had in myself. Me, the guy who had achieved so much in my life, discipline. This is what's so important about that part of that story, is that I couldn't discipline my way out of this, and I didn't understand it. 3 o'clock in the morning is my witching hour. I'm walking the streets of Lake Worth alone, just bitter, wondering didn't I took care of her? How come I can't fix this? And how come, she would know what to do? I just wanted to go see her. I mean, I was just done. So my recovery was slow, but when they put me in the rooms of AA, man, I slid down in that chair like a greasy pork chop on that first fucking meeting. I didn't want anything to do with you guys,
You went right to meetings. How long were you in the rehab for? 28 days?
They stayed there as long as I could. I was there for like 90 days, and then they hired me to be the director of maintenance, and they gave me a place to live.
After 90 days?
After 90 days. That place saved my life, and my therapist, Diane, from that place is still one of the closest people in my life to me.
So you start working for them 90 days after they give you a place to live. You're now in the free world too. So you start transitioning. So you're in a controlled environment essentially for your first 3 months.
Yes.
And then you start working for them. You start going to meetings, self-help meetings. What was that like, transitioning now from an institution to the real world?
I don't feel like I did, because I was still working for the institution, and I took to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous right away because I committed. I went all in, and I understood that, okay, I'm gonna be okay. So I never really went back to I don't even feel like I have gone back to the real world now, because I still work in treatment. And from that moment forward, that's what my life's been. And that was 7 years ago. And then of course I got married right away. I met my wife today. That's I hitched my wagon to that train. It's the best thing I've ever done. God gave me a second chance. I can't even describe it, because who gets that twice in their life? My wife's 10 years clean from a heroin addiction. She was a speaker at a meeting, and I was sitting in that meeting, and this woman started speaking. Remember the feeling I told you I had when I met Jana? That godlight? See, when I came in at 46 years old, that part of my life was over, and I was okay with that. I wasn't looking for girls. I wasn't doing my life. I had resigned myself to the fact that my life was going to be a string of meaningless conversations with women I was barely fond of, and that held absolutely no interest to me after what God had given me once in my life. And then here she is speaking, and all of a sudden I had this feeling, and I recognized that feeling, but I didn't know what it was, but I recognized it. It was the same feeling I had when I met Jana. And I realized that I think I could feel something about somebody. I think God's lifted that from me. I think God's taken that from me. Her and I went on a date. She called me. She got my number from a sponsee of mine.
She just called you out of the blue.
Yeah, and messaged me, and we've been married 6 years, man.
Wow.
And it's amazing. But I talk about this all the time, because they say no relationships in the first year, all this stuff, and it's like, dude, what happens after 1 year if you haven't done any work on yourself? It's been a year now. Welcome to my shit show, honey. Let's just switch places on the Titanic, right? When I tell a new guy, hey, no relationships in the first year, you know what he hears? No relationships ever, because 1 year is forever for that kid. How about no relationships till we do this work? Because you're going to change. And what you find attractive in another human being is going to change. And when I talk about my wife and I, it's like, when I met her, I didn't need her to complete me. I became whole through this. God made me whole. I didn't need her to complete me. She didn't need me to make her happy. She was happy, because she went all in on. I went all in on myself. She went all in on herself. With those two paths crossed, it was a done deal, man. We had very little to do with it. It was all God, and that's the way it was. So there was that aspect of my recovery too. And I feel like my recovery went from the minute that I committed and said, I'm doing this thing. I don't care if I got to tie myself to a telephone pole. I'm never picking up a drink again. That's a big part of recovery that we and I'm talking about from working in the field even, that we gloss over sometimes. It's a big part of recovery that we gloss over even in the rooms of AA sometimes. Because we start talking about spirituality and God, and we're at a beginner's meeting, and God's like, you got to find God. And it's like, hey, people, how many times you heard this? People say, The book doesn't tell me I can't drink. It tells me I will drink. You heard that before?
Or many times.
Yeah, okay, man, I get it. But guess what, kid? You can't drink. You can't be sober if you're drinking. You got to stop drinking. And that's one of the things that I try to, it's really important that we gloss over is you can't drink and do drugs anymore. That part of your life's over. And I think I grasped that very early on in my recovery. So there was no I want to go. That was lifted from me very early on, I think, because I understood that, okay, this I can't do anymore.
You mentioned doing the work on yourself and getting right with yourself before meeting your wife, and she had done the same work, right? You weren't using her to fill a void.
No.
So what did you learn about yourself when you did the work on yourself?
I learned who I really was. I learned I talk about this a lot of time. I learned the 3 me. There's 3 me's, right? There's the me that I want everyone to think I am. It's 1,000 yards off target. There's the me that I think I am. It's a little closer. It's still pretty far down range, right? And then there's the real me. There's the me that I'm terrified you're ever going to see. There's the me that keeps me from going to certain places and I'm afraid people are going to find out. That's the stuff that I have to talk about. That's the stuff that's who I am. And I don't want to be that guy. Right? And that's the stuff that I have to tell on myself about, and I have to talk and I have to share with somebody else, and that's really the biggest thing that I learned about me was that the narrative I had of who I was so far off target. It was just so far off target. My self-importance and grandiosity and the center of the universe and stuff was so insane.
How did you align all 3 of those me's to get the actual you and who you are today?
My very good friend TJ said this to me, and he says, listen, kid, if you ever like who you are and where you are, you better remember who you were and where you were. And I think that I do that by constantly working with other men that are new in sobriety because they have the same delusion that I had. They come in with the same delusions that I had, and I see it in them, and I can call them on it. I can call them out on it because I was that, and I can call them out on it because we offer a solution to that, But I see it, and it makes me cringe because it's like that was how I was. That was me. The narrative in my head was just, don't you know who I think I am? So I think that's how I align that. I can still be that guy. And it's all fear driven. I'll give you an example. My wife tells me I have resting murder face.
You do.
I don't mean to. I really don't mean to. It's just
so right.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me that. So I'll go to the gym, right? And I'm aware of it now that I can make people uncomfortable around me just because of me. So I'll say a prayer in my car before I go to the gym. Lord, just let me smile and not be, because I just forget to smile. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just not that guy. I'll be like, just let me, smile and not be that guy. But then I get in the gym and I don't know the guys around me, the testosterone, the fear creeps back in. Not fear that I'm going to get attacked or assaulted. The fear everyone's looking at me, right? Do I look okay? Normal human fears that we have.
Of course.
And guess what I started doing? Guess what comes back? That character defect where I'm sitting there like this, like I'm on the prison yard in front of my workout station. And I'm just like, and then I'll notice somebody looking at me and I'll overcorrect. I'll be like, now they think I'm going to follow him home, right? Oh shit, I got his attention. And it's like I might have overcorrected there a little bit, but it's a matter of being aware. Of when I start to feel less than. When I start to feel less than, that me is going to come out. Why do I feel less than? And that's the beautiful thing about doing God's work and doing this, is that I know that I have a purpose. And I know very clearly what that purpose of my life is. And when I start to feel less than, I just have to remember that. that had, I'm here for a purpose. My life has a purpose. And you know, one of the greatest things that someone told me in recovery, I had just finished one of the first times that I spoke and told my story. And I do a lot of public speaking. I'm on the podcast. And God, and I've been like that since I was in my teenage years. I was doing seminars in front of hundreds of people, adults at 17, 16, martial arts seminars. So I cultivated a way. I'm well read, and I have a gift for public speaking. People have always told me I have. And one of the first times that I was speaking, I had a hard time with feedback. People go, man, that was amazing. It's amazing how you tell it. You're such a good speaker. And I'm going, oh, yeah, and I'm doing one of these like sloughing off.
Of course.
There's this old timer sitting here when the meeting's over. He goes, hey, why do you do that? I said, why do I do what? He goes, how come every time somebody gives you a compliment, you're sloughing enough like you don't know? And I said, well, I'm humble. I want to be humble. He goes, well, that's not humility. He said, humility is an honest perspective of yourself in relation to God's universe and your fellow man. That's humility. It's an honest perspective of yourself. He said, but that's not humility. He said, let me ask you a question. He said, do you ever feel like you're less than? And I said, yeah, all the time. I said, isn't that a common thing with us? And he goes, well, what if I told you you are? And the guy's like, I'm like, dude, does this guy want to fight? What's he doing? Yeah. And he goes, let me tell you something. He says, God gave me gifts and God gave you gifts. He says, he goes, everybody in this room is better than you at something. And you're better than everybody in this room. So he said, God gave me gifts, God gave you gifts. You better figure out what they are because you're being called upon to use them. He said, I'll find my gifts. You find your gifts. Together, shoulder to shoulder, let's go take those gifts and use them to help an alcoholic and a drug addict. And that's what we do. And that stuck with me for so many years. It is still to this day. Is that today I can be proud of the fact that, yeah, God gave me a gift and I'm using that gift now. And that's not prideful. That's an appropriate use of that's appropriate humility, is understanding that I'm not going to deny that gift. I'm not going to deny that gift that God gave me. I'm going to use it to help somebody get out of what I got out of and to find their purpose. There's just no greater gift than that, I don't think.
It's very well put. I can't stand it when people give me compliments.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm crawling in my skin.
Yeah.
Or if someone says, hey man, I really love your podcast. Like, you're very gifted at what you do. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just like lucky. I had a couple clips go viral and a lot of people watch it,
Yeah, but you are though. You are good at what you do because you have a purpose. There's a purpose behind it.
Yeah. So when someone comes to you then and says, after you come off stage and they're like, dude, you have a gift, like you're great. How do you accept that?
I say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I accept it today. I was never able to accept it. But to deny it is denying what God gave me.
Mm.
You
talked about the gym example. I suffer from that. And it's crazy because every time, once in a while, I'll have the awareness and I'm like, all right, I need to correct that.
Right.
Just be me.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone is looking at me.
Yeah.
It's not all about me.
Yeah.
How did you gain that awareness? Because I then will go to the gym the next time and I'll do the same thing. And then I'll go to the gym again and I'll do the same thing. I'll end up catching myself. But how did you build such a heightened awareness?
So there's a reason why they say practice these principles. It's a practice. Same thing as a law practice or a medical practice. They're practicing on you, bud. Right? You think they got it figured out. They're practicing. You practice them. And that's what happens. And God puts moments in your life that are opportunities to practice these principles. Right? But to practice these principles, you have to, whatever your character defect is, you have to practice the opposite. You can't just say, God, remove these from me. It's not going to happen. It's just not. You got to stop using them. Right? He's not going to take them if you're using them. And so if one of my character defects is impatience, I got to practice patience. And God's going to give me moments to practice patience. It's that old joke, don't pray for patience, God, And so I think the awareness comes from part of it was doing that 10-step, I got tired of saying sorry to people.
Ooh.
I got people who are finally like, hey, listen, man, I don't care about your AA bullshit. Just stop. Stop being a jackass. Oh, sorry. You know. So part of it is, hey, I don't want to do like, because I would do a 10-step all the time because I was told to do that. And that's one of the ways that I gained the awareness was just, wow, I'm doing this a lot. I talk over people. That's a big one of mine was talking, and I still do it. And people have to call me out on it. I get so passionate that I'll step on you when you're talking. I work on it. It's embarrassing. Yeah. It's an embarrassing character defect. But I can take it today and go, thank you for pointing it out. I'm doing it again. You know, and not be hurt over it. Not be like, my pride's hurt over it. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm doing it again. You know?
I like how you talked about opposite action for character defects. Taking that opposite action. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and patience with a 6-year-old. She's all over the place. She's testing me in every area, seeing what she can get away with. And, there are certain, I used to be more reactive to it and get down to her level. And you can't fight fire with fire. And I started taking that opposite action, and I would stop myself. I would say, okay, I need to fight through this and be super patient and just let her go through her little tantrum, whatever she's going through. Support her, let her know I love her, and I'm right here when you're ready to, but you're right, you practice it and and it's tough in the beginning, but then it gets easier. And then it becomes almost like a muscle memory thing, right? Like your body, it just adapts to it. Your mind adapts to it. Your thinking adapts to it, and then you're doing it.
Yeah, it becomes instinct.
And then that feels like home versus what I used to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's why when I hear people say they struggle, they've been sober for years. I still struggle every day with turning my will over to God, and it's like all that means when it says turn our will in our lives, and our will is our thoughts and our lives are our actions, right? And that's all that means is I'm gonna turn my thoughts and my actions over. And today, like, I don't have a problem with lining that line. It just seems to line up. I don't have to sit there and fight it every day. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I know that this is wrong. I shouldn't do it. I just intuitively know to do the right thing because that's what happens now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like there's no question about it anymore. It's like the book says, we intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us.
Yeah.
Not because I'm no longer fighting it. Because I'm no longer like thinking about what I'm going to get out of it or how I make myself look the best in this position, in this situation.
Mm-hmm. So you help a lot of people today. What has helping other people, and you touched a little bit about this before, what has helping people done for you?
It's given a purpose to everything I've ever done in my life. Good, bad, my alcoholism, it's made it matter. All of it. I was asked one time, I was on a podcast, and the guy asked me, how did you ever forgive yourself? I've done some, which I don't get it, but I've done some violent things. I've done some, I ran with a rough bunch, and my disease takes me to a criminally violent place. And he said, how'd you ever forgive yourself? So I don't really think about that. I don't. To me, that's like a get out of jail free card. Okay, I forgive myself, good. What I do is I take all that stuff that I've hurt people with, emotionally, physically. I was a man who lived in reckless disregard for the welfare of people around me. But I take that stuff and I use it to help the next man. To say, hey, man, look at this stuff. This is who I was. This is how bad I was. This is who I am today. And I begin to use that stuff to help the next person. And eventually, over time, that stuff's the good that I'm doing with it, the help that I'm doing with it is going to begin to outweigh the harm that I've done with it. I don't know about forgiveness, but that's justice. It's justice. And so I think the biggest thing that me helping other people does is it's brought justice into the world for the way I've lived my life.
Yeah.
And because of that, I don't get woken up at 3:30 in the morning. See, because here's what happens, man. They don't tell you what doesn't come back. Let's take the 9 years that I was out there. What happened in that 9 years was life went on for everybody else. My son went from 8 to 18, and I missed it. You don't get that back. That doesn't come back. I don't care how many people I help. I don't get that back. My alcoholism doesn't show up as a bottle of liquor on my doorstep anymore. Those days, that doesn't happen. It shows up at 3:30 in the morning when I wake, my eyes pop open, and I go, man, I wasn't there for 10 years of my kid's life. What kind of father am I? I wasn't there when my father died in a hospice, literally at the end of the strip mall from where I was drinking in the bar. I wasn't there. That's the alcoholism between my ears, right? And that's where helping other people, that's the relief, that's where that relief comes from. It's just, I don't know why it works, I don't know how it works, but it works.
How is your relationship with your son?
Magnificent.
Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I sure can. My son's 27 now, and he's married to an absolutely amazing woman who's a nurse. And my son's a master marine mechanic. He went to, what started off as him going out to Beer Can Island with me on the boats when he was 12, developed into him wanting to be around boats. He got a job in a marine at 16 years old, and now he's a master Yamaha. I mean, he's killing it, man. He's like, they fly him to the Caribbean and drop him off on these super yachts. He's Power Cat catamarans he works for. It's just amazing, and we have a wonderful relationship. And he doesn't have my disease, thank God. And it's amazing. It's really amazing. And it's funny because, sometimes I feel like I don't deserve any of it. The book talks about the warped lives of blameless children. Warped lives of blameless children. I was responsible for that boy's childhood. I held his childhood in my hands, and I affected it. He qualifies for ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I can't fix that for him. That's something that he has to deal with. And I don't know what his thoughts on that are. I don't know how. I know that he loves what I do today, but how do you measure the damage done? So all I can do is always be there now, and just all I can do is keep living the way that I'm living. I know. You know that he's proud of me.
What does your program of recovery look like today?
It's my life. It's everything. What does it look like? It changes. Once you never hear me say I need to go to a meeting, because I don't need to go to a meeting because it's not for me anymore. I need to be at a meeting for that guy walking through that door that's dying of alcoholism and doesn't know way out. I need to be there for him. I don't need to go there and talk about my problems. Right? My recovery, my work's not my recovery, but it is kind of, I guess, because I'm embroiled in it. And I don't even like to call it a program, man. It's a way of life. I do what God puts in front of me to be done. And that means answering my phone. It means not turning a blind eye. It means just means showing up, letting your feet match your mouth, man. Suit up and show up and be there. And I tell people all the time, I don't sponsor guys because I like them or because I see something in them or because I want to hang out with them or they're cool. I sponsor them because they're dying of alcoholism and they're the next man in line. That's it. You know, think about this, man. We look for a purpose in life, right? And is self-help book after self-help book, motivational speakers, life coaches, they'll tell you you find what you love and what you're good at, and that's your purpose. And I don't buy into that because I didn't create me. I did not create me. I could not therefore begin to know the purpose for which I was created. It wasn't until that man took my hand through this program, placed it in God's hand, and I was able to live in communion with my Creator that purpose was revealed to me. And what a greater purpose, man. Look, people go on mission trips around the world to help their fellow man. They're bringing them to us on vans. They're bringing them to us on vans, bro. And every one of us, because of our alcoholism, addiction, and subsequent recovery, has a tremendous capacity to serve our fellow man, to serve humanity. It's just, that's my program. It's just I do it, whatever's put in front of me.
Let's have a little fun. You were a national kickboxer, national champion.
18 years old.
You're bouncing and you are escorting women.
Oh, yeah.
Were you ever tested during that time? Did things ever get out of hand?
Yeah, all the time. And I loved every minute of it.
Can you give me a story? All this good talk. We got to even it out with a little salaciousness.
Yeah. My buddy likes to tell this. I kicked a guy through a windshield once.
How did that go down?
I actually wasn't working at the time. I was bouncing at a place called Revolution, but I was off that night, and I was just in there. I'd come back from surfing. I think I was in flip-flops. I was drunk. And there were these Canadian guys on the dance floor. Dan, they didn't know who I was. They didn't know that I ran security there, you know. And it was an off night, right? So I had off that night because it was a slow night. These guys this is back in like 92, something like that, 93. And these guys are trying to slam dance, trying to get a pit going in music that you just don't do that to, just hosers, you know. And I had to use a Canadian term. And I poked the guy in the back and said, "Hey man, you can't do that. Calm down." And the guy turned around and punched me. Just bang! Right in the nose, blood everywhere. And I remember my buddy Christina was with me. I put my beer down and I followed these guys out. The bouncers snatched them up and took them out. We had this off-duty cop that we hired that's out front. And anyways, we walk out and Chris is like, "Alex," to the cop, he's like, "Just go around the corner." And this guy's sticking his head out the window of his car, you know, like looking through the window at me like, "Fuck you," you know, and stuff. And I just kicked off my flip-flops and I just sidekicked that guy right through the window of his car and busted him up. And then when he tried to get out, I kicked the door shut on him. You know, just old style karate kicks, man. Like, and that, you know, took me at a point in my bouncing career from here to like, "Did you see what that guy did?" You know, and so
the word spreads.
Yeah, and it's always like way bigger than it is. And you let it be, right? I was always a small guy. I'm not a big guy. Right now I'm 185 pounds. When I was bouncing, I was probably 160. And my friend Chris taught me how to project power by the way I spoke, because I'm not a big guy. Most bouncers are big guys. Today, the landscape's totally different because everybody's fighting now. There's UFC, there's MMA corners on, you know, gyms on every corner. Back in the 90s, bro, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Right? And I trained in a real hardcore. I also did Japanese jiu-jitsu. This is before Brazilian jiu-jitsu came about. So I'm bouncing, you know, it's always the big guys that wanted to, you know, and I just go shin to shin with them. Yeah. Make the biggest guy out there just drop down and cry. I just come to swing my shins like baseball bats, man, these things right here.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun doing it because I was good at it, you know. But yeah, he taught me how to project power in the way that I spoke so that you just knew that you stepped in it. You know, like I would never take a guy, I'd never call him out in front of his girlfriend or in front of his friends. Usually I'd go to the friends first and say, "Hey man, this guy's kind of out of line. Can you get control of him?"
Yeah, of course.
Because you want to take his ego off the line, right? But sometimes, I remember I was bouncing in one place and this was years ago, and the guy, it was like golfers. It was like a bar. And they hired a guy like me because they wanted a dude that looked scary to work. And these guys are golfers. They're right off the golf course, I guess. You know, they got some girls with them and stuff. And this one guy's just out of control. He's just being loud. He's just being a tool, you know. And I told him, hey, can you calm down a little bit? And he said it nicely, you know, and he just sloughed me off. So I went to his friends and I said to his friends, hey guys, can you get him under control? He says something to me and he goes, you think I'm afraid of you? And I looked at him and said, no, man. I don't think you're afraid of much of anything right now. Most people in your condition aren't. And most of the time, there's nothing to be afraid of. He said, but this time, this isn't one of those times. And his buddies looked at me and they're like, hey man, we need to go. Come on, let's just go. Because the guy's like, but they realized that just the way I said that, you know,
this guy knows what he's fucking doing.
You just stepped in it, man. Just don't.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was always about that. Very rarely did I have to like physically. It's just when it was time. You know. And besides breaking up a fight is one thing.
Yeah.
And the worst of that was breaking up women. Women girl fights. I used to teach my guys like you grab that girl and you back up to a wall because her boyfriend's coming. Right? Yep. You're in a nightclub and you're a dude and you got a girl and the bouncer yokes her up. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You're going.
Yep.
Right? Back up against the wall and hold her. You know? Girls try to kill each other, man.
Yeah.
Guys will fight. Girls try to kill each other.
Yeah.
Ripping hair, you know, stuff like that.
Gouging eyes out.
Dude, I remember we had a bunch of strippers in the parking lot at one time, and the cop went out there and fighting. The strippers were fighting, and they good looking girls. They worked at one of the higher end places, and we one of our always hired a cop because when you have to go to court, then that you have that cop sitting there on your side. It just helps out so much to hire an officer cop.
Of course.
And anyways, he couldn't break him up, and one of them kicks him, and she's jumping around holding it. He just pepper sprayed every one of those girls. And I've never seen so many beautiful girls just with snot coming out of their nose and just like, oh, some crazy stuff. I'm glad there were fun times, but it got really, really, really dark.
Mm.
You know, but yeah, there were fun times.
Well, Eric, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to shout out before we
Yeah, we're doing, I'm part of Real Recovery Talk, as you know, and we're doing what's called the Family Reconnect program. I think it launches June 3rd, I believe, but you can go to realrecoverytalk.com and it's on YouTube. And what we're doing is we're putting together a program for family members of addicts and alcoholics to navigate the process of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't know what conversations to have. They don't know when to have them. They're walking on eggshells around their loved ones.
My parents were clueless.
Yes, and what we're doing is you'll have access to professionals at our place like Dr. Tambini and Tom. You'll have access to me, and it's a 12-week curriculum, and we'll help you navigate that, put you in contact with the right resources for you, and it's going to be completely interactive with us, and it's just going to be we're really excited about it, to get the families to learn how to reconnect and have a family unit again, regardless of how the addict, whether they're getting better, whether they're not getting better. You know, it's about the family. That's why we're calling it a family reconnect, and it's a really it's going to be a really great program, and you can go to, like I said, realrecoverytalk.com.
Mm-hmm.
and just look for the link.
So it's not only education, it is active therapy for the family to rebuild that family unit.
Exactly. It's active therapy and it's
Got
modules.
it.
So there'll be different modules. They're downloadable modules, and then you'll have access to literally talk to us.
It's amazing.
Via Zoom.
And the resources, they're not alone. They feel part of as well because the family needs the support.
Yeah, and by the end of it, you'll have a community. You'll
That's
have
amazing.
a community that includes professionals like us that can help you navigate this, because it's a lifetime thing.
Dude, my parents were alone on an island. No idea.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, half the time they think they're helping and they're hurting because they just don't know how to help. And this is going to be able to answer all those questions for them and give them a working outline, really, of how to reclaim their lives.
It's amazing.
So thanks for, check it out.
I appreciate all the good you're doing, all the people you help.
Thanks,
and
man.
Appreciate you coming
Thanks
on.
for having me on here.
You know?
Awesome.